Good evening and welcome to the Somerville Redevelopment Authority meeting of April 9th. My name is Phil Ercolini. I'm Chair of the Somerville Redevelopment Authority. I call this meeting to order at 5:34 p.m. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this public meeting of the SRA is being conducted via remote participation. This session will be recorded and will be a public record. I will now ask the board members to confirm they are in attendance in an alphabetical order. Awana Bonnie,
Here.
Daniel Campen,
Here.
William Gage,
Here.
Patrick McCormick,
Here.
Christine Stone,
Here.
and myself, Phil Ercolini, are in attendance, and we have a quorum. I'll now ask city staff to present a few of the house rules about using the technology. Ben?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So, hi, everyone. My name is Ben Demers, and I am an economic development planner with the city, and I serve as staff to the Somerville Redevelopment Authority, or the SRA. When an agenda item is being presented this evening, any presentation materials that staff have received ahead of time will be displayed on the screen. If city staff or other participants wish to direct the board's attention to a specific page, they should verbally note what page staff should show on the screen and should then verbally explain to the board what is being shown. Please also note that this meeting is being conducted remotely using Zoom webinar. In order to comply with open meeting law under state guidance, which does not allow for side conversation, the chat function amongst attendees has been disabled. If you as an attendee have a question or would like to make a comment on the matters discussed tonight, please use the raise hand function to indicate that you would like to speak. I will unmute participants one by one and give you 2 minutes to speak. When it is your turn, please clearly state your name and address before saying anything else. And then after your 2 minutes, your microphone will be muted. Please remember that any questions asked by attendees this evening will be part of the open record. And I'll now pass things to the SRA's Special Counsel, Catherine Lester-Selkirk.
Thanks, Ben. Good evening, everybody. My name is Catherine Lester-Selkirk, and I'm Special Counsel to the SRA. I would like to remind all members that all votes must be roll call votes. And I think that's all I'm supposed to say. I don't have my script. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Catherine.
You're welcome.
Okay, so the first item on the agenda is the approval of the March 12th general meeting minutes. Have all members had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any recommendations? No. Okay. Bill?
Yeah, on page 2 of the minutes, halfway down, just before 4, it's by be working closely with POAH. What is POAH? I don't recall what that was.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair.
It's
sorry,
just before
Bill,
4.
can you what is food for item 4?
Yeah. Let me see. It's on page 2, and it's just before item number 4, and it's POAH. What does that stand for?
Sorry, wrong. I have the wrong minutes up, but that's so POAH or POA stands for Preservation of Affordable Housing.
Yeah.
They are an affordable housing developer based in the Boston area.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a
Motion to approve.
Awana Bonnie makes a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Yeah.
Second.
Christine Jones seconds. I'll do a roll call vote. Awana Bonnie,
Yes.
and Ewan Campen, with William
Yes.
Gage,
Yes.
Patrick McCormick,
Yes.
Christine Stone,
Yes.
and myself, Phil Ercolini, have approved the minutes of March 12th. The next item on the agenda is public comment period. Any members of the public, Ben, who want to address the authority at this point?
For you, Mr. Chair, we do have 4 members of the public in attendance this evening. None currently have their hand up, but if we want to give a moment.
Sure.
Mr. Chair, I'm not seeing any hands. And also, I apologize. I was sharing the meeting minutes before for a different meeting, which is why I couldn't find it.
Okay. All right, thank you, Ben. The second item on the agenda, the third item on the agenda, I'm sorry, is presentation from Groundwork Somerville.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, I can start with a quick introduction.
Sure.
So as SRA members know, the SRA currently owns 6 parcels of land throughout the city, and these include 100 and 138 South Street and Boynton Yards. These sites are currently used for urban agriculture work by an organization called Groundwork Somerville under a lease that Groundwork entered into with the SRA in May of 2022. As a condition of this lease, Groundwork is meant to present to the SRA's board at their April and their October meetings, which we haven't done for the past couple of years, but we're trying to get back into the habit of doing. So these presentations are meant to cover farming operations and other groundwork programs, future programs, and public access. And then they also give SRA members an opportunity to ask any questions of Groundwork staff. So with that, I will hand things over to Aisha Sanders, who is the Executive Director of Groundwork Somerville.
Thank you very much. It's nice to meet everyone. And if it's okay, I'm going to share my screen. I have a presentation.
Yeah, you should have the ability.
Okay. Okay. And everyone can see it okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you for having me this evening. And I'm just going to quickly go over the presentation. And everyone usually pretty much knows our mission, Groundwork Somerville. We're a 501(c)(3), and our organization is geared towards changing places and changing lives in Somerville, Massachusetts through youth employment, urban farming, equitable food access, and community engagement. And I want to introduce our team because we've had some transitions, of course, since over the past couple of years. Well, all of our staff is under 1 year old. And so we have Leah McCarthy, who's our Urban Ag and Green Spaces Director, Kinsey Ballard, who's over our youth programs, and then Sophie Cash is with our new program that started over the fall, and it's called Climate Safe Neighborhoods. I'll go into the program details a little bit more shortly. We will be adding a school garden director manager position. We did have someone accept that role today, as well as an entire team, part-time staff member, and a curriculum specialist. And then we do anticipate hiring an administrative operations person. And I just want to briefly go over my background because I just started in fall of 2023. And so I'm coming on new. I relocated here from Durham, North Carolina. My background is in education, sustainable agriculture, and community organizing. And my degree is in international area studies and sustainability. And my vision for Groundwork Somerville is just elevating the voices of our most vulnerable community members by carrying out our programming with care and with excellence. And so that has been pretty much where our focus has been for this upcoming year. All right, so I'll go over some of our program, but as Ben mentioned, we have a location at 138 South Street, and we have basically 2 plots of land, and one is South Street 1, and that plot is, right now we're about to revamp it and focus on turning it into a community free pick space where the community members can come in, can sit and have their meals, especially with us being right by Boynton Yards, but then also we'll be able to hold workshops. And it's just, it would be a free pick area. So if there are herbs or anything out there, we just want people to be able to engage in the space. And we already have, with the development happening across the street over the past summer, we did have construction workers come over and sit in the space. So it's really nice to have these green plots of land for people to kind of get some respite. So it's been really nice. Our South Street 2 will continue to be an educational model where our green team youth workforce is able to do their training. They're able to learn about gardening skills. And I'll go into more detail about more specifics on the skills that they are picking up along the way. And then also, I'll go into more detail about the urban farm, but with South Street 2, we also want to make sure we do focus on culturally relevant crops, especially given the diversity represented in Somerville. We currently manage 9 school garden sites. So we built the gardens, we've maintained them with the support of our green team workforce. And also right now we are currently revamping some of the spaces because a lot of the beds have deteriorated or they need more supplies. And so this is the program where we are hiring a brand new team to pretty much go in and to have standard-based curriculum that is supported through the garden sites. And our green team, so we just started a biking division that started in the fall. We're really excited about that. We've been, and you'll see to the left with the picture, 2024 winner out of 700 plus applications. We were one of the 5 selected for a bike grant to get some tools for our green team to continue to repair their bikes that they're basically being trained on how to repair. They have open repair workshops. So it's a program that has really taken off, and we have a lot of support from the community, but especially being in Somerville, where we're trying to turn to alternative transportation versus using cars all the time. And we continue to do our garden education with the green team, and then we also are adding climate justice. All right, and our new division is climate safe neighborhoods, which is a program that just started in the fall. And it's basically an organization where we go over some of the climate situations that are happening, but especially in East Somerville and other areas that are a bit more vulnerable. And we try to address concerns of the community. And one of the ways that we're doing that is we just started a resident advisory group. And so this group meets 1 to 2 times a month. They are paid to share some of their background, but then also some of what they're going through in their community. And then also we're trying to give them the tools to advocate for themselves, to be their own voice. And the meeting was hugely successful. We have our second meeting on Wednesday, but the residents were very engaged and had lots of opinions. So we're really looking forward to sharing more of that. And then I just wanted to share some upcoming events that we have. We do have our Earth Day celebrations. And so we'll be collaborating with the city of Somerville and the Growing Center, and we'll have something on site. And we are basically going to have a work day, but then also we'll have booths set up where members from the city and other organizations can come and share about some earth-friendly aspects of ways to kind of make a difference in Somerville. We also have our Earth Day event coming up with Boynton Yards. So the residents there will be able to come over to our space and hear more about Groundwork Somerville. And then we have a plant sale coming up. And that one is something we do annually, and we've already been asked about it. Then we have our Grow Gala, which will be held at the Armory, and that will happen in May 23rd, 2024. So right around the corner. And that is it. So I'm opening it up for questions now.
Any questions from members? I have a few, but Aisha, if I may, a couple of things. The bike repairs, where is that done? And can any member of the public bring a bike that needs repair?
Yeah,
And
so
is it-
it's at the Dojo Bike Kitchen is where they actually do all their training, and the Bike Kitchen holds regular sessions where in the evenings, I think it's around 6:30, and I don't have the exact dates, but in the evenings they open it up to the public to be able to bring their bikes for bike repair. And then also there's an Earth Day event, and it's Monday the 22nd, I believe, where the green team will be able to repair bikes. They only have the capacity to repair about 5 to 10, but that will be an event that will be posted.
Okay, and then another follow-up to the meeting that you referred to about climate and East Somerville. Where do they meet? They meet twice monthly? Where do they meet?
So we don't really have that much space yet. Our office has expanded. We've built up our staff, so we're looking for our own space. So right now we're meeting at Polycarp. I forget the full name, but it's Polycarp. And so it's somewhere where it's convenient for the residents to be able just to walk over from the Mystics or, pretty much close by in East Somerville. And so right now we had our meeting there last week. And we are having our meeting this week there as well.
Okay. And then I guess my final question, as some of our plots get developed going forward, are you thinking long-term about where potential new sites could be, or are you just ad hoc, kind of just winging it?
No, we're trying to be very intentional. So right now, we have the space over at South Street, but you know, we don't know what's going to happen with that, but we think we have a few more years. So we are being intentional about keeping our eyes open, but we are in Somerville where land is limited. But one of our hopes are to try to work with the city, the state, and anyone we can to kind of look at some of the vacant lots, some of the green spaces, because we were on a concrete jungle, basically. We built it up from concrete, and we can do that anywhere. And so we are keeping our eyes open and working with the city to try to, you know, figure out, you know, where we can do our greening in a few years. But even now, there are some spaces that it would be nice to have little green spaces of respite throughout Somerville.
Okay, well, thanks, Aisha.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from members? Seeing none. Oh, I'm sorry, Patrick, go ahead.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Aisha. That great to hear about these programs. It really sounds very revitalized and creative. Just to that last point about looking for land where there's not much. Is Groundwork in touch with the Union Square Neighborhood Coalition or working with any of the groups that are involved in community benefits agreements? I know when I was involved, there was some talk about community gardening and green space and all of that. And I was just wondering if that's still part of the dialogue where some other private owners could be providing some space.
Yeah, so we have our climate safe neighborhoods director is also our community engagement director, and she has been in touch with everybody. You know, so it's more so as we hire on more help for our capacity, then I can start reaching out to some of those connections. And so right now we're just trying to work with what we have with the program we have with excellence. And we're getting to that stage where we will have the staff in place where I can go out and then begin to start making those connections and looking at private spaces and any space we can get into, but we want to make sure our capacity is there to be able to move forward.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you again, Aisha, for that, your presentation, and good luck.
Thank you so much.
Ben, you raised your hand.
I apologize. That was a wave.
All right, okay, just a wave. All right, thank you. Ben, you and Kim, people are confused.
Chair, you got to work on your wave versus raising your hand discrimination.
I got it.
Just
Okay.
waving to the director.
All right, I will work on that. Okay, the next item on the agenda is item number 4, which is the Winter Hill Urban Renewal Plan, and we get an update on 299 Broadway.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, I can give a quick update on this. So just to follow up from the last SRA meeting, at our meeting in March, I had mentioned that 299 Broadway was going to be returning to the Zoning Board of Appeals to propose changes to the project to allow for more units. So just also for context for anyone watching who doesn't have the background, so one of the active urban renewal areas in the city that the SRA manages is the Winter Hill Urban Renewal Plan, which encapsulates an area in Winter Hill along Broadway, primarily around an old vacant Star Market site at 299 Broadway. And the goals of the plan are currently being met through private development of the site by a partnership of Mark Development, Beacon Communities, and Rise Together, which received their initial approvals from the ZBA in February of 2023 for 288 units across 2 buildings, 115 of which are deed restricted affordable. One of the buildings is fully affordable, the other is mixed income. Because of the high cost of development, the project team was going to be returning to the ZBA to propose adding 28 additional units by removing step backs on the 5th and 6th floor of the Eastern building, which is the mixed income building, to allow units to be more easily stacked on top of each other. This change was ultimately deemed insubstantial by the Zoning Board of Appeals, or the ZBA, meaning a public hearing was not required. And initially, we were not sure if they were going to require that, which would have added a bit more time to the process. And then the ZBA did also approve the changes. So I know last time we spoke, we were anticipating potentially a slightly longer process, but ultimately it was just one ZBA meeting on March 20th where they reviewed the changes and deemed them insubstantial and approved them. So the project team is now able to resume working towards obtaining a foundation and then building permit to begin construction. I had mentioned this last time, but staff didn't see any significant change. They didn't see the changes to the project as significantly impacting its ability to fulfill the goals of the Winter Hill Urban Renewal Plan, which is, of course, of the concern of the SRA. And I'll also note that the development team presented this information to the Winter Hill Urban Renewal Plan Civic Advisory Committee last month, who were also not opposed to the changes. So just wanted to share that update given what we had discussed last time.
Thank you, Ben. Any questions of Ben on Winter Hill? Christine?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Ben, you described the project as one building is affordable, one building is mixed income. The mixed income building, I believe, is the Mark Development portion of the project. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And I was not aware. Can you describe what mixed income means? Does that mean that that building also has affordable units, or is that building just market rate?
No, so that, through you, Mr. Chair, I apologize. So that that building also contains affordable units. I believe it's 10% affordable.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Any questions of Ben? Any further questions? Seeing none. The next item on the agenda is item number 5, which is Gilman Square, and a discussion of the most recent Gilman Square Civic Advisory Committee.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. So again, at our February and March meetings, we had talked about considerations of urban renewal in Gilman Square that are being discussed by the Gilman Square City Redevelopment Parcels Civic Advisory Committee. For the shorthand in this meeting, I will just say the Gilman Square CAC. And this was just to give context to the SRA that these conversations were happening. Patrick attended the most recent CAC meeting, again, after the discussion at the last meeting. After guidance from Kathy and from the city solicitor, Cindy Amara, he attended primarily to introduce himself and to listen to discussion. So Patrick, I did want to ask about any initial thoughts to that conversation. I can also give a little bit of context after about the next steps that we had discussed.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I think it was good to be there. I think it was less contentious around the issue of redevelopment maybe than I expected, and probably less consensus. I mean, there was a discussion between CAC members of, some questions about what's going to happen next, sequencing, timing, et cetera. I mean, clearly there's a general, as we've heard, interest in moving forward in some way, and some frustration of the delays. But I would say, and I'll be interested in what Ben has to say, but I got the sense that there were different opinions, and perhaps I think everyone I heard speak was taking anything said by the property owner, that is to say the mobile station property owner, with a grain of salt, which is to say the extent to which any impact on the sale of that property or the value or anything is, may be exaggerated. Knowing, of course, that things are still in play, so that it is a factor. So, and I did let folks know that, of course, we would welcome anyone to attend our meetings, and just that we wanted to keep an open dialogue, and be sure to be aware of any concerns as they were raised. So I don't know, Ben, I felt like there wasn't a lot said, and as you said, Ben, we framed it that I was there to listen, but it seemed positive.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I would agree. It was definitely positive. I think we had also had very good attendance for this meeting from CAC members, and I think it was a good space where we were able to restart discussions about just what the process of urban renewal is. because there's obviously been, discussion of anxieties and things like that, but not a lot of discussion in more recent meetings about what the process looks like and like what choosing this option versus another option for achieving development goals looks like. So it was great to restart that conversation. So just to give some context for sort of what the next steps will be. So the CAC is going to be continuing their discussion of whether they want to recommend urban renewal for the site to the SRA, which is going to involve them also weighing other options for achieving neighborhood goals, as I said. So for instance, the RFP options to encourage purchase of another site that Christine mentioned at the February meeting. So sort of weighing those different tools for achieving neighborhood goals. One of the main concerns that was expressed at this most recent meeting was that the urban renewal process can be a lengthy one. And so part of the reason that people want to make a decision before the city completes its current study of city-owned land, which has been sort of like the main focus for the for development of the city-owned parcel. People are concerned that if the process is quite long and we wait until the end of that study being completed, that it's just furthering that process. And so that's why there's been interest from CAC members to concurrently with that process be talking about whether they want to recommend urban renewal. They were also aware, though, it also came up in conversation that even adopting an urban renewal plan can still allow private market transactions to play out without the use of eminent domain. So people were also very interested in kind of learning more about that and discussing the benefits of that. So I know there's been more back and forth kind of between the CAC and the SRA for the last few meetings. I think for now, over the next few months, it's staff's intention to just let the process play out at the CAC and let that conversation kind of take its course. And then we'll plan to come back to the SRA if they make a more formal recommendation, and obviously can provide updates or answer questions as SRA members have them. Are there any additional questions at this time, though?
Ben, has any private developers been in contact with the city relative to interest in that area?
Do you mean in the area generally, or
Yeah.
specifically in city-owned parcels?
No, in that area generally.
Yeah, so there has been discussion with the neighborhood council and with the local councilor about, I apologize, I can't remember the exact address right now. I want to say it's 234 to 236 Pearl Street, but about a project there that there was interest in introducing a zoning amendment to allow for more density essentially on the site. And then for potentially also putting forward a project proposal, but at this time that has not gone forward. So there's definitely been discussion of development in the area, but obviously as we have discussed in the past, there's also been frustration from neighborhood groups that some of the projects that have materialized over the past couple of years haven't gone anywhere yet.
Okay. All right, thanks, Ben. Ben, you and Campen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I just have one question. Do we, the thing that all of us on the council constantly hear is kind of, when is the city going to release the request for proposals? Obviously, there's a lot of moving parts. And when I say request for proposals, I mean, to try to attract developers to the Homan site. Sorry if I missed it, but do we have a kind of general sense that we want to communicate to the public of when they can expect that is going to happen?
Yeah, so the release of an RFP has been discussed in relation to the disposition study, or again, we're talking about different names, but the study of city-owned land and how those might be utilized or sold or leased or those sorts of purposes in the future. And the timeline for that's been given is about 6 to 8 months. So that the city has said that needs to happen before any sort of RFP process is undertaken. And then I think the CAC will also have to consider, as they're considering recommendations of urban renewal, of whether or not an RFP process would also want to wait for that process to play itself out if there's the possibility of facilitating a process that brings both sites together. So I think for the disposition study aspect of it specifically, the timeline given has been 6 to 8 months. But I think it's hard to, I understand, Councillor, that people are asking for a more specific timeline, and as much as possible, I try to give them the specifics. But to really pin down a timeline of when an RFP can be released, it's difficult with the factors like urban renewal also on the table.
Got it. Yeah, thank you. And I know it's hard to give a specific timeline. I guess the argument that is sometimes made to me by engaged residents in the Gilman Square community is we shouldn't spend too much time worrying about whether or not we're going to consider eminent domain of that parcel, because if it is clear that the city is seeking requests for proposals for Homans, the development community will, swing into action and will do everything they can to acquire, so it's kind of like we shouldn't let that decision hold up the request for proposals, and worst case scenario, we're wrong. And we put out a request for proposals and, you know, maybe there aren't strong proposals and there's a little egg on our face. I'm not a development professional, but that makes sense to me, basically, is kind of put it out tomorrow and kind of see what comes. And maybe the private market will figure out a way to combine these two parcels. Is that something that the administration would consider?
I can share that back. From my understanding, at the very least, the disposition study would want to be completed before an RFP is being released. But yeah, I noticed that Christine also unmuted, but I remember Christine also mentioned in February that there are sort of methods that can be used through an RFP process that can encourage, beyond just allowing the market to work itself out, there's also things like incentives, whether that be financial or whether that be timing incentives that can be provided in an RFP to sort of encourage that. So those are things that are definitely still on the table. I think, I mean, a piece of it will always be staff capacity, and that, you know, drafting and creating an RFP to release, if we don't feel confident that we'll get good responses, we always have to weigh that a little bit. But definitely something that we can talk more about as staff, of whether or not it makes sense to release this RFP and just see the responses that we get to it, so we have a better sense of what sort of development partners are going to be responding and what is actually feasible on the site from the private sector's perspective right now.
All right, well, yeah, thank you. I mean, I think, you know, obviously just one member of this board, in my role as kind of amplifying what I hear from constituents, like, and I know you know this, I know you all interface directly with these folks constantly. It's like, do this yesterday. You know, whatever needs to be done to get this site developed is like, it's kind of baffling to myself as well, like why we have this vacant lot to this day. So yes, consider that, you know, the unanimous feedback that I hear from residents. Thank you.
Pardon?
Christine, how much of this is due in part to the marketplace?
In terms of what the
In terms of interest, development interest in that area.
I mean, I think a great deal is, well, I think a great deal is based on the fundamentals of the site, and that it is now a site that is directly, I don't know, you know, on top of, if you will, a green line stop. And so in an area that will see improvement. So if you're a developer looking for good sites, you know, this is a good one. Now, I don't know the geometry of the site. That's another, a fundamental element of the site. Can it support, right, a right-sized residential building? And I don't know the answer to that, but it needs to be, you know, a certain width. My suspicion is it does. So I think, you know, I think those things outweigh kind of the financial markets, that if you know, if developer sees a good site, they'll find a way to kind of see themselves through financing it, or maybe even holding it for a time, controlling it and then holding it until the time is right. But to Ben's point, I think I agree with you, Ben. And my point in the February meeting is the city can, I think, assist a process whereby a developer could approach or could think of a development with both sites, both the Holman site and the mobile site, by you know, in their agreement or contract with the developer, giving that developer time to first tie up the Holman site, right? Have control of that site, know they control that site, but then give that developer time to go speak to the mobile owner and see if they, you know, if that developer can make a deal, as opposed to having a quick closing where that developer doesn't have the time to go speak to the mobile owner. And that was my point, that there are ways in which, you know, the city can help the CAC and help the neighborhood achieve what they want without having to undertake an urban renewal process where the city has to, you know, take on another obligation of buying that piece of property, particularly since it's a mobile gas station. And one concern I would have is, you know, environmentally, is that something the city wants to own? I have no idea if there's issues. I'm not suggesting there are, but it was a gas station. So that was my point back in February. There's other, you know, tricks in that. They have other tools in their tool belt besides urban renewal to achieve the goals of the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Any further questions of Ben on this item? Okay, seeing none, before I entertain, going into executive session to discuss the next item. Ben Demers, is there any members of the public who may want to address us at this point, or have any questions?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I don't see any hands yet, but if, again, we want to just give a moment.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not seeing any hands.
All right, thank you, Ben. Then the next item on the agenda is item number 6, which is a request to go into executive session to discuss the status of litigation relative to Cobble Hill Center LLC versus the Somerville Redevelopment Authority. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session, and at the conclusion of which we will resume our open session with item number 7. So is there a motion on the floor to go into executive session? Awana Bonnie makes the motion to go into executive session. Is there a second? Patrick McCormick seconds. We'll roll call vote. Awana Bonnie,
Yes.
Benyon Campen,
Yes.
William Gage,
Yes.
Patrick McCormick,
Yes.
Christine Stone,
Yes.
and myself, Phil Ercolini, vote to approve the request to go into executive session. Okay, kids, we'll see you in a bit.
Apple ID is
I think we have, let me see, we just need Patrick and then we can resume. Okay, everyone's muted, but me and Patrick. Is that okay? Do you all want to be muted? Okay,
I'm unmuted.
all right. All right. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is item number 7, which is SRA recruitment reminder.
So yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair. So this is, as it sounds, just a reminder. At our last SRA meeting, I had noted to board members that I had just received the final. Okay, so just because we're unmuted now, anyone who's not speaking, can they mute? Okay, sorry. So I had just received the final materials to be able to open the call for applications for the vacant SRA board position, which I then opened the following day. So that's been up for a little over 3 weeks now. I just wanted to remind SRA members that applications are due by April 15th. So if you know anyone who might be interested in applying, please feel encouraged to share the application call with them that I sent you over email. They can also reach out to me directly with any questions that they might have. Happy to talk to people about the process. After April 15th, I'm going to be sharing the applications that we've received with the Appointments Advisory Committee, who will then choose applicants to interview and then ultimately recommend 2 candidates to the mayor for her to then narrow down to 1 to recommend to the city council. So at the next SRA meeting, I'll plan to also give a quick summary of any relevant details from that application process, but we'll probably be starting the interview process sometime around early May, mid-May. So hoping to have a selection made sometime beginning of June is my goal. Are there any questions from SRA members on that?
Okay, seeing none, then the next item on the agenda is any items not reasonably anticipated by the chair. Okay, seeing none, then the next item is item number 9, which is our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, May 14th, 2024. And item number 10 is a meeting adjournment, so I'll entertain a motion that we adjourn until May 14th.
We'll make a
Anyone?
motion to adjourn.
Alana Bonnie makes a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? William Gage seconds. We'll do a roll call vote. Alana Bonnie,
Yes.
Benjamin Campen had left the meeting. William Gage, Patrick McCormick,
Yes.
Christine Stone,
Yes.
and myself, Phil Ercolini, have voted to adjourn. All right, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a good
everyone.
night.
See you next
Bye.
month.